This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Right, whatever.
Well, let's get back to it.
Yeah, that had me pondering for a moment. That first news story. His Majesty the King has said that he and the Queen are very upset about that whole Alex Salmond issue. And I thought, the Queen? Oh, that Queen. Yeah, not my Queen. A little hard to think of her as the Queen. A Queen, perhaps. Not the Queen. Alexa, show me what a hypocrite looks like, rolled in lard and covered with the clippings from the barber shop floor.
The great big greedy nincompoop.
Yeah, bingo. The great big greedy nincompoop has been scribbling at the Mail today. Latest column headline, Boris Johnson. Labour looks venal and corrupt. Boris Johnson said that. Definition of venal. I looked it up. I did homework. Can you believe that?
No.
Definition of venal. Capable of being bought or obtained for money or other valuable consideration. Yeah, well, as long as that money comes in rubles, bodge. Or as long as the valuable consideration is for £27,000 a lunch delivered daily by a butler over 8 months as a gift from a billionaire, despite you saying that you paid for all your food yourself, which is as true as you paid for your wedding yourself, and you paid for your wallpaper yourself, and the sofas, and the chairs, and the cushions, and the lamps, or you paid for your holiday in Mustique by yourself, or you paid for your holiday in Marbella, or for anything else for that matter. Venal like that, Bodge.
I can't comment on that.
Blah, blah, blah. Can he hear himself? I mean, I would tell you what is in the rest of the column, but it's behind a paywall, and there's absolutely no way I'm paying for that. Not now, not ever, never. Texts and emails and such from last night. Chris in Middlesbrough says, "Hi, Nick. I had a good mate who went down this weather control rabbit hole." Yeah, we were talking about the hurricanes that went into America, and various good, honest folk, dingalings, were saying that it was all because of the lefty communist Marxists of the Democratic Party who were controlling the weather to slam it into Republican states. To prevent them from voting for the screaming Mimi.
Don't be rude.
Yeah. And I'll sum that argument up for you. I mean, really. Chris in Middlesbrough said, "I had a good mate who went down this weather control rabbit hole, and a lot of others. It got to the stage where we had to part company, as I was an asleep sheep or something, and he got quite abusive. You were an asleep sheep? Hey, wake up, sheep. Why is it a sheep and many sheep? Why aren't they sheeps? He says, "This is how a cult works. Sad." Yeah, it's very, very sad, Chris. I wouldn't engage. Just don't engage. Just put your fingers in your ears and hum loudly to yourself. Any old song will do. Even that one. Just talk about something else. I mean, he did say that he was a good mate. I've addressed this issue many, many times because I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin.
Oh, right, yeah.
With whom I agree on absolutely nothing whatsoever because I am completely correct in every respect and she is always wrong about everything.
Correct.
And so we can't discuss anything other than the problems that people send us to solve on our podcast. And so I have devised a scheme by which we need never have crosswords. Well, you know, every now and again we have crosswords, but I edit them out. And the idea is, as soon as we get into dangerous territory...
Warning!
I deploy a safe space word, or she does. One of the two, whichever one of us is most concerned first. And at that moment... on the deployment of the safe space word, which in my case is dingleberries and in her case is sausages, then we start immediately talking about a prearranged topic. It works for us most of the time. Mostly. So if he is actually a good mate, Chris, then try that. But otherwise, just let him go. Let him go down that rabbit hole. But there's so many of them, and there seems to be getting more and more. And they seem to be getting more and more aggressive as well, and you just can't talk to them. It's as though they have departed reality and left it at the gates in the airport.
Bye-bye.
They just they've waved it off. Never to be seen again. It's a one-way trip. They ain't coming back. Meteorologists tracking the advance of Hurricane Milton have been targeted by a deluge of conspiracy theories that they, the meteorologists, the weather people on TV, are controlling the weather, and they've been receiving abuse and death threats. I mean, come on. They're not telling you what they're doing with the weather. They're telling you what the weather is doing. Abuse and death threats amid what the meteorologists say is an unprecedented surge in misinformation as two major hurricanes have hit the US. I've seen these people interviewed on TV. I mean, you wouldn't actually believe it unless you heard them say it with their own mouths. But there's just loads of them. And they do not occupy the same reality as the rest of us. It's frightening. There pretty much isn't a conspiracy theory that floats by them like a how can I delicately put this? Like a dog's poop on the water that they don't snatch out of the drink and hold aloft and shout gold. A series of falsehoods and threats have swirled in the 2 weeks since Hurricane Helene tore through 6 states, the Dingaling states, causing several hundred deaths, followed by Hurricane Milton crashing into Florida on Wednesday. And this is because the Dingaling states are down there in the south, by and large, and that's where the hurricanes form. And so those people didn't put 2 and 2 together by thinking, well, you know, climate change. No, that doesn't exist. They didn't think that climate change is making the water warmer and therefore it creates more precipitation and it increases the severity of the storm. They didn't think any of that. No, they went straight to Kamala Harris is is dictating the weather like she's a wizard. A series of falsehoods and threats have swirled in the 2 weeks since the 2 hurricanes tore into the Dingaling states. The extent of the misinformation, which has been stoked by you-know-who, the screaming Mimi, Adolf Hitler, and his followers, has been such that it's stymied the ability to help hurricane-hit communities, according to the head of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. And to think, because some people called Donald Trump's fans stupid. Why ever would they say that?
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yeah. Their cult leader is like a smart person. Katie Nicolau, a Michigan-based meteorologist, said that she and her colleagues have received messages claiming that the meteorologists or the government are creating and directing hurricanes, and even that scientists should be killed and radar equipment be demolished. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. You know, when the bullets start flying at meteorologists and not just school children, then it gets serious. She said, I have had people saying I created and steered the hurricane. There are people assuming that we control the weather. I've had to point out that the hurricane has the energy of 10,000 nuclear bombs, and we can't hope to control that, but it's taken a turn to more violent rhetoric, especially with people saying those who created the Hurricane Milton should be killed. These are actual Americans living now, and not 300 years ago. She said, I have had people saying I created and steered the hurricane. There are people assuming that we control the weather. I've had to point out that the hurricane has a mind of its own, unlike these morons who've been contacting her. One post aimed at her said, stop the breathing of those that made them and their affiliates. Stop the breathing, as in to death. She said, murdering meteorologists won't stop hurricanes. I can't believe I had to just say that. All of these people can not only vote, they can also reproduce. Oh, no. In huge numbers. A wide range of misinformation has been spread as Helene and then Milton gathered pace in the Gulf of Mexico, such as claims spread by Donald Trump that FEMA had run out of cash for hurricane survivors because it had been given to illegal immigrants. They come here, they're rapists and they're murderers, and some are good people, I suppose. He does look like a person who, well, not a person. He looks like one of those blow-up balloons that's got a leak. He does look deflated and rambling. I mean, talk about disjointed thoughts. He gives me a run for my money. Katie Nicolau, a Michigan-based meteorologist, said she and her colleagues had received messages that said that she was actually directing the path of hurricanes. How would she do that? How? I mean, what is going on in these people's minds? How would she be able to do that? A wide range of misinformation has been spread as the hurricanes gathered pace in the Gulf of Mexico, such as claims spread by Trump that FEMA ran out of cash because it had all been given to illegal immigrants. Violent threats have also become common, with posts across TikTok, Facebook and Twitter saying that federal emergency workers should be beaten or arrested or shot or hung on sight. Shot or hung on sight. The people that are there to help, the actual emergency services, should be shot on sight. But, you know, these are just simple people with few facts at their disposal. You know, morons. And they can vote, and they can reproduce. Oh, no. But it's worse than that, because several of Trump's closest allies have asserted that the federal government is somehow controlling hurricanes. Hurricane Helene was an attack caused by weather manipulation, claimed the video shared by Michael Flynn, an actual former national security advisor to Donald Trump. You know, he had a proper job and everything. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a far-right Looney Tunes congressman, wrote on X last week, "Yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done." And as usual with these conspiracy theorists, they take one tiny piece of verifiable truth and they magnify it into a giant edifice of misinformation. I mean, there seems to be something happening to Americans. I don't know, maybe they were always like this, but maybe they put something in the water. Nuclear waste, perhaps. But they seem to be losing their minds. It's the most powerful nation in the world, and half of the country seems to have the intelligence of a bath sponge.
Don't be rude.
Joe Biden blamed Trump for an onslaught of lies and told the former president to get a life. I think it's a bit too late for that, Joe. Joe Biden says it's beyond ridiculous of the claims being made around weather control. It's so stupid it's got to stop. Well, it's deeply stupid. I mean, it's not just superficially stupid, because the same people who say there's no such thing as man-made climate change are also saying that hurricanes hitting America are the cause of man-made climate change. How can they hold two totally opposing thoughts in the same small head? And for the benefit of the numbskulls who get their information from people with 4 followers on social media, humans can worsen hurricanes by burning fossil fuels and creating a hotter ocean and atmosphere that gives hurricanes more energy, but they can't create, control, or steer individual storms. And anyone who thinks otherwise should have their car keys taken off them and anything sharp removed from their homes. But, you know, as it's America, they'll get to keep their guns. Because, you know, that makes perfect sense. And for meteorologists, the experience around hurricanes Helene and Milton are just an extreme continuation of a trend where the public is increasingly getting its information from extremist figures online rather than experts. This is according to an expert, Chris Gloninger, a former TV meteorologist and climate scientist who faced threats for talking about the climate crisis during his forecast. He said the modern Republican Party has an army of people who are on social media with huge followings who just disseminate this misinformation. He said, "I'm seeing my former colleagues getting threats. I'm getting messages that we are steering hurricanes into red states. It's mind-blowing. I've never seen anything like this in any disaster." And in potential end of the world as we know it news, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are neck and neck in the polls. Hey, America, wake up. It's later than you think.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
0345 6060 973. This says, hi Nick, there is a kernel of truth in weather manipulation. It wasn't long ago that they were talking about cloud seeding over Dubai and Qatar, and there was flooding in the desert. Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Taking a tiny kernel of truth and building it into a giant edifice of misinformation. You are quite correct. There was cloud seeding, and there were also floods in and around Dubai, but the two did not coincide. They did not happen on the same day. And so, yes, there was cloud seeding, and yes, there were floods, but the one did not cause the other. But, you know, these are just facts, and nobody is remotely interested in any of those anymore.
Correct.
Andy in Plymouth says, oh, this is about, I thought I invented this last night. I'm a little deflated that I didn't. Because I can't remember why we were talking about it, but I said cake. I was trying to choose a cake. And I thought, yeah, it's a bit boring, cake. But if you put it in a blender and you add some milk, and perhaps a bit of ice cream, and then you just whiz it all up, and then you could drink it through a straw, and then you got a cake shake. I thought I came up with that on the hoof, but apparently it pre-existed my suggestion. Because Andy in Plymouth says, on the subject of best cake, conspiracists obviously like fruit cake. Yeah. He says, I broke my jaw a while ago while conducting some late-night gardening. Oh, we're going to need way more information than that. You broke your jaw gardening. He says, so I got fed up with taking in my food through a straw that I put a load of cake, milk and protein powder into a blender, and I've never tasted anything so good. I put on 7 pounds in weight. My mother-in-law loved it. Loved what? The cake or that you put on 7 pound in weight? Not recommending breaking one's jaw while gardening, but cakey shake is stunning. Oh, I really want to try that now. That does sound pretty good, doesn't it? Ooh. Phil in Accrington says, hi Nick, I went to Australia in 2004 and came across the schooner glass. I thought back then it would make a good compromise between a half and a pint. Yeah, we were talking about this last night as well. And there is a definite gap in the market, I think, for that. Because a half is, I don't know, you barely notice it when it goes down. But a pint, sometimes it's a bit like, oh, it's just such a vast amount of liquid. And most of the time it's fizzy liquid. So I think that something in between just makes a lot of sense. And in fact, there is something in between, because beers that come in bottles often come as 500 ml. And I'm not an expert on this or anything else, but I think 500 ml is less than a pint, isn't it? I think it's less than a pint, and it's more than a half pint. Don't correct me on that, because I don't really care one way or the other. But I think something in between. Most other countries don't serve pints. It just seems like a stupidly huge amount of liquid to just pour down yourself, pint after pint after pint. But, you know, other countries don't drink like we do, standing up and bellowing at each other. They sit down and they have a chit-chat over, you know, little bits of food, and then they get up and walk smartly home, as opposed to picking a fight with the doorman and getting chucked out on the street. Phil in Accrington said, no, I read that one. Text says, nah, N-A-H, nah, as in... No. Class only defines you these days if you choose it to. We were talking about this last night as well. These are all texts and emails and messages from last night, by the way. I've got boatloads of these to get through. Nah, he says. I'm assuming it's a he. Class only defines you these days if you choose it to. Absolutely no one can define it. You could ask 100 people to define what working or middle class is, and they'll come up with something completely different. But they don't. He says, therefore, it's irrelevant, but only if you realise this. Otherwise, you trap yourself in a self-imposed class limitation. How? I mean, all of those words sound pretty impressive until you ponder it for about 3 seconds and then figure out that actually none of that makes sense. How would you trap yourself in a self-imposed class limitation? By what method would you do that? I think working class is dirty fingernail jobs, and middle class is white collar. It's dirty collar jobs. And this says, hey, Nick, good news. Did you hear that Rupert Lowe, the Reform MP for Great Yarmouth, criticised public institutions that displayed the Pride flag? In response, Great Yarmouth Council is now proudly displaying the very same flag. What is it with these people and rainbows? I mean, well, they're going to be shouting at clouds next, crying out loud. I mean, I know you're trying to whip up hatred in your cult fans, but really, can't you do any better than that? Rainbows. Yeah, well, I don't like this and I don't like that, and moan.
Stop whining.
0345 6060 973. East Yorkshire. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick. How are you tonight?
I am great, mate.
Good. Yeah. Quickly on the glass thing, have you never been to a beer festival in Germany?
No, I have not.
Litre glasses.
Yeah, those big ones that you see. You see Fraulein at the beer keller, who they can carry like 14 of those in 2 hands. It's a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, and it's horrible because by the time you get to the bottom of it, it's warm.
Yeah, exactly.
Full of flies or whatever else you go see a summer one. It's not pleasant, but the glasses themselves weigh too much.
Yeah.
It's just too heavy to handle.
Correct,
so
yeah.
We're not the worst in the world, but you've been talking about...
But yeah, I'd have to say that is not your normal beer measure in Germany. It doesn't ordinarily come that way. That's just for, frolics.
Yeah. And I mean, Spain, you get ants everywhere, but that's just because our lot go over there and it's sort of taken over.
Yeah.
There we go. But anyway, you're talking about Trump, and I don't know how I got to this conclusion. Maybe it was Alex Salmond popping his clothes or something. But I thought, what would happen if Donny just disappeared tomorrow? What would be my fondest memory of him? And that would be the balloon with the nappy on over London.
Oh. I'm going to go with him waddling up the plane steps with toilet paper on his shoe. Only because of A, the image, and B, none of the people who were with him liked him enough to tell him.
You have a point there. So then I wandered on to Johnson and I thought, probably the zip wire.
The zip wire, yeah. I'm still annoyed with whoever let him down. He could still be up there, you know. That's
right. And I thought, just Google the zip wire. And Johnson came up. But what also came up when you Googled zip wire was Margaret Thatcher wanted the zip wire.
What?
Margaret Thatcher did the zip wire first.
Oh, I'm going to have to see evidence of that.
Yeah, it's on there.
What was she wearing?
Some sort of military type.
Well, yeah, that I can believe. Yeah, I mean...
that takes you on to Liz Truss then, doesn't it? Because she started copying that.
Yes, she did. Comical, yeah.
From one to another. I mean, at least Sunak never went military. You can say that.
Okay, Margaret Thatcher, the miners' strike, the British economy, serving the Crown, number 10, zip wire. I don't see any zip wire here. Nothing's coming up. Margaret Thatcher's zip wire video is what I've put in there, and I'm getting nothing. So I'm seriously starting to doubt your word. You're not lying to me, are you?
I've seen it with my own eyes.
In your own eyeballs, right.
I'll call your researcher and tell him how I got that.
Yeah, you call him any number of names. At your leisure. Go ahead. I double dare you. All right, thanks a lot, Mike. Leave that with me, and I'll delve into that in great detail. I'll look at it very strongly and with great strength. It says, "Hi Nick, we stopped going to pubs regularly because it became far too expensive. We were also talking about pubs last night in relation to the measures. Well, the smoking ban. Yeah, somebody called in and said basically that the reason the pubs are closing down is because of the smoking ban. They're still talking about that all these years later. Oh, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. People are going into pubs because of the smoking ban, not the other way around, because that was just a hellhole, going into pubs that filled with other people's smoke. Ugh, awful. But he said, we stopped going to pubs regularly because it came far too expensive. It's unbelievably expensive. How did everything get so blooming expensive, by the way? I mean, it were grand when I were a lad. They wouldn't let me into a pub. But a pint was about, I can remember, it was about £3.50, there or thereabouts. You could buy a round in some places and have change from 12 quid. Now, well, in some places, you wouldn't have much change from 12 quid for 1 pint.
What?
Yeah. That might be a little bit excessive, but I have been charged over £10 for a pint. That's true. Yeah. And it's fairly ordinary beer. I mean, it was pretty good beer, and it had been hand-delivered by an artisan from Devon or Cornwall or some out-of-the-way place like that. But it was being served in a regular establishment and with service charge because, even though I went to the bar myself, asked for it with my own mouth, and then using my hands and my feet, motivated it back to my table on my own, they still charged me a service charge. You believe that? 15%. But that came to over £10 per pint. Anyway, he said, we stopped going to pubs regularly because it became far too expensive, so we built our own in our back garden. It's brilliant and saved us a fortune. We still go to pubs, but are happy going back to our place with friends. No pub bores, no idiots, no struggle at the bar, no taxi, put whatever music on we like. It's great. We're now in it listening to you. You can't do that in your local. They said. No name. Are you sure you've built a better pub? Because it sounds like you've built a worse living room.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
How may I help you?
How may I help you? Brian in Belfast. Brian.
Hello, Nick. As first time caller to your show, who can understand me if a really, really heavy cold.
You have a very, very heavy cold. I've read that you don't want to get that.
No. It's going around here, so it is. A lot of people have it.
Yeah.
But just when you were saying about Americans, thinking that they can control the weather, the government, and different things. I was telling you, researcher there, I was over in Florida last year, and when we were in the bar, and we get talking about the World Cup of football, and blah, 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 and I actually said to him, well, how can you have the World Series of baseball when there's only teams from America? And he looked at me like blankly, you know what I mean?
Like, what? You're lucky to have made it out of there alive, Brian.
Yeah, I know. How can it be the World Series when there's only teams from one country?
Yeah, that don't make no sense to me. I mean, there's only Japan and America who are daft enough to play that dull game.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Rangers for big girls.
Yeah.
I tried to explain to him about the World Cup of football, where teams from every country in the world.
Except for America.
Except for, America does, but they never do too well.
No. Well, they keep picking it up and throwing it. Yeah, big mistake. Huge.
Yeah. But, I think all Americans, it's been proved that half of Americans, or maybe more, has never left their own country. They don't know about the rest of the world,
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that about that number have never left their own state.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Mind you, they're very big states. I mean, Texas is about as, I don't know whether this is true or not, but even if it isn't, it doesn't prevent it from being a fact. Texas is as big as the United Kingdom. Did you know that?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Thanks for going along with that. I'll check that later. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, we got a cricket World Cup, and that doesn't involve the world, but it does involve more than one country. So there is that.
Yeah. But trying to say how can it be a World Series when there's only one country, and they just looked at me blankly,
Yeah, I've got no idea what you're talking about. Well, they probably couldn't understand what you were saying. Did you have a?
Did you understand me? Okay?
Really? You didn't have a cold when you were talking to them then, did you?
No. Hope you can understand me, okay?
No, not a single word.
Nick, I'm not going to ring you again.
Okay, it's a dream come true. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. 0345 6060 973. This text says, that's why the Tories were in power for 14 years, because they were bad. Labour has been in power for a couple of months, and they are very bad. Now, some of these texters, they text in response to something I've said at that moment, as though we're having a conversation. And that sounds like the response to something that I said, but there's no point in putting it in a text, because by the time I come to read it, I'll have talked about 86,000 different other subjects. That's why the Tories were in power for 14 years, because they were bad. Okay, I don't know what the "that's" refers to, but they weren't in power for 14 years because they were bad. They were in power for 14 years because people do insist on voting for a party that does not act in their own interests. But that tweaks their hate genes. You're in danger. Vote Conservative. We're the only ones that can save you from this rampaging menace. You know, that kind of thing. And Labour, as for the Labour has been in power for a couple of months and they are very bad part, well, the very implies that they are worse in their first 100 days or so than the Tories were in over 14 years. And that is not true now, nor will it ever be. Historians will reflect on how untrue that statement is. I mean, ex-Tory leaders are gadding about in solid gold helicopters, living on which will take them to their mansion, which is perched on a mountain of money. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer once took a stapler home from work. No! Honestly, I've never seen a pile-on like it. The right-wing press have lost their minds. I think they lost their minds when the Tory party lost the last election, because they just can't get used to not being in power. And so they're basically flailing around like a baby and just throwing all of their toys out of the pram. And they just want to smash everything up like a toddler. Oh, it's so unfair is essentially it. It's just one long whine.
Stop whining.
And they just go on and on and on, trying to create some sort of false equivalence between whatever like small beer Labour have been getting up to, like a small schooner of beer, as opposed to the vast German schooners that they've got over at the Kellerfest, or whatever they call it. The beer Keller Fest thing. You know, the festival with the beer in the Kellers. Kevin in Swaddlingcoat says, I also enjoyed Rebel Ridge, but don't you think that the storyline was a rip-off of Sly Stallone's First Blood? But I don't know. I've never seen it. I don't think I've ever seen a film with Sly Stallone in. Just checking through some of my memories, whatever small parts of my memory are left. A film with Sly Stallone. Yo. I don't think I've ever seen a film with him in it. There's just something about him that's just kind of... I don't know. Do I want to sit looking at that man for 2 hours? Not really. Message coming in from next door. You've never seen Rocky? No, I don't believe I have. I mean, I've seen the clips of him running up the steps. It didn't look like he could win a fight with anybody. At least in that moment. But no, I've never seen a film with Sly Stallone in. No, I've seen many films with Arnold Schwarzenegger in them.
Correct.
Yeah, but nothing with Sly Stallone, no. 0345 6060 973. Peterborough, Eric.
Hello.
Eric.
Yes, sir.
Eric.
How are you?
Great,
Good.
mate.
Listen, your caller earlier on that said he couldn't understand why the baseball series was called the World Series.
Yes.
When only Americans took place.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell him that it's sponsored by the newspaper called The World? That's why it's called the World Series.
There's a newspaper called The World.
I think it's a newspaper in New York that sponsor it.
Where did you get this information?
Oh, I don't know. I just pick things up like that. I've known for a couple of years because I also thought it was a bit silly calling it The World.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is. It's a newspaper that sponsors it, and the newspaper, I believe, is a New York one.
Right. Well, as you're speaking, I am checking on that just to see, because I don't believe what anybody says at any time ever, not these days. And all I'm getting is who won the World Series at any given year, about which I'm not remotely interested.
No,
but
actually,
but that makes...
I just picked that up.
Yeah. All right. Okay, good work. Excellent, Eric. Thanks for putting us in the right direction. World Series. Isn't the internet marvellous?
No.
Because this would ordinarily... I mean, before the internet, how would you have found stuff like this out? I mean, you'd have had to go to the library. But your local library isn't going to know this. How did people find things out before the internet? Let me just think about that for a second. If you wanted to know why the World Series was called the World Series, how on earth would you be able to access that information if the internet did not exist? It's amazing how scientific discoveries were made and huge corporations were started from kernels and grew into mighty oak trees of business, all without the internet, without email, without WhatsApps and without Zoom calls or any of that stuff. It's like living in a cave 20 years ago. World Series named after... Let's have a look. The post-season series between the AL and L... No. The word world naturally attaching to the word champion in the English language is... No. What was the origin of the name World Series? Here we go. The World's Championship Games, as it was called, was a best-of-9 affair that came about as part of a peace agreement between competing leagues. No. Why is it called the World Series? Yet, see, even with the internet, you can't find anything out. No, I'm not getting any of that. Doesn't mean to say it's not true, but I'm just not getting that information at my fingertips. Here is a call in Manchester. A person called Raj. Raj.
Good evening there.
Yes, sir.
How are you today?
I'm great, mate.
There's a couple of things, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's like, why do they call it Mr. Universe? You know, for these big strong guys.
Yes.
Because
it sounds stronger than Mr. World, as Miss Universe sounds more beautiful than Miss. Although I don't know if we actually did include aliens from space, would we be likely to find a woman who is more attractive to us in space than on a? Well, okay.
But the thing is, there's got to be stronger aliens than Arnold Schwarzenegger, aren't there?
Possibly, yes. And there could be more beautiful women or men, sexist, in space than there are down here. Yeah.
Anyway, the other reason why I rang was, you know, Rocky, and you sort of said that you've never seen it.
No.
Well, do you know, actually, Sylvester Stallone wrote the script for that film.
Yes, yeah, and he was dirt poor when he did it. And, apparently they wanted us to put somebody else in the part, and he said, no way, it's got to be me, and the rest is history.
Burt Reynolds is what they wanted.
Burt Reynolds, right. Well, he was the biggest movie star in the world for quite a few years there, wasn't he?
He was in that time, yeah. Do you know he also had to sell his dog because he couldn't afford to feed him? Do what, sorry? He had to sell his dog. He had like a bulldog thing dog that he had when he was poor.
Yeah, right.
And he had to basically sell him. And then when he made a few quid again off the film, he went and bought him back.
He bought him back.
Oh.
Well, that makes me all feeling gooey inside. Thanks for that, Raj. Bit of good news. Happiness. Happy-ness. That's what we want. OK, here comes the information. Let me just check this right now. Was the World Series manage your... oh, God. Every single time you open a web page, it's manage your options. OK, I'll manage my options. Now, sometimes they say reject all, and that's all you need to do. And then the other ones that are really annoying, they make you scroll through about 56 different things, and you've got to turn each and every single one of them off. Use limited data to select advertising. No. Create profiles for personalised advertising. Isn't that the same as the one I've just said no to? Use profiles to select personalised advertising. That's three things that sound the same. Create profiles to personalised content. Same blooming thing again. Use profiles to select personalised content. Again, no. Measure advertising performance. What, in feet or inches? Oh, okay then, I give in. Accept all. Would you like to give us your email address for further info? No. God. I think it's really getting annoying, isn't it? Okay, well, I'll pause. I'm going to have a little lie down now because I'm just getting very, very stressed. But you know me, I never complain.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
So I'll come back with that in just one moment.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
This is absolute tosh.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I agree with Nigel Farage.
What?
Yeah, what you've been hearing on this show so far is absolute tosh. First of all, Margaret Thatcher never appeared on a zip wire. I've looked and looked and looked, and I can't find any evidence that she did, and you'd think it would pop straight up. And if you just think about it for a second, of course she blooming well didn't. She was Margaret Thatcher. Can you picture Margaret Thatcher on a zip wire? No. Can you picture Margaret Thatcher in a tank? Yes. So that was the first piece of misinformation that you heard on this show. And you know that guy that called just a moment ago and said that the World Series of baseball in America was called after a newspaper called World? Liar! Yeah, that's not true either. The New York World newspaper was established in 1860, just before the Civil War, and it fared poorly throughout the 1870s before being bought up by Joseph Pulitzer. Over the next half-century, the World was renowned for everything from its yellow journalism. What's that? That's not racist, is it? To its debut of the crossword puzzle in 1930, and it was sold and merged with the Telegram and the New York World Telegram. The New York World never had anything to do with the World Series, however, other than being one of the many newspapers to report the results. The modern World Series, like its predecessor, the series waged between the National League and the American Association teams, was so named not because of any affiliation with a corporate sponsor, but because the winner was considered the world's champion. Yeah. The title was therefore simply a shortened form of the phrase World's Championship Series. So it is ridiculous of the Americans to call it the World Series, because it's only them that do it. But, you know, to many Americans, the world starts and ends at their borders. Well, to many Americans, the world starts and ends at their front garden. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, and about that, all of that misinformation, I'm very sorry.
I am very sorry that I screwed up.
Apologetic.
Totally I am so sorry. You just don't know how sorry I am. I am sorry.
I am very sorry. Kevin in Swaddling Coat, if indeed there is such a place, says, I also enjoyed Rubble Ridge, but oh no, I just read that one. Sly Stallone's First Blood. Haven't seen it. Have you heard? Now then, let's see. Who's been waiting the longest? Sandbatch. John.
Yeah. You had somebody who texted in about going to Australia and he thought the schooner was the answer to a pint.
Yeah.
Depends what state you were in.
Really?
He was probably in Victoria.
He was probably in the right state.
If you're in New South Wales, it would be a Medi, which is slightly smaller than the schooner.
Mm.
And Victoria itself, usually you drank out of a glass.
Right. I'll have 3 middies, please.
Booze.
What do you want?
The other thing is, since the Labour Party got in, the right-wing press have been gunning for them big style.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they've even lasted 100 days with this job.
Yes.
I mean, every breath, every move, they're having a go at them. I mean, you got the Times, Telegraph, Mail. How many more are there?
Express, Star.
Express,
all of them. Pretty much every single media outlet has been gunning for Keir Starmer like he's the return of Jeremy blooming Corbyn.
Yeah, you've really been going for him, and everyone associated with the Labour Party. I mean, if they get through the next 5 years, he'll have done well.
If they get through the weekend, it'll be a miracle.
Yeah. But credit to them, they battled on. They're sticking with the guns and that. I mean...
and I maintain my position. We won't really know enough to come to a decision until the budget. Let's just pause for then, right?
People forget for the last 14 years and all the stuff-ups and everything that's gone on in media. Yeah. I mean, that's typical of the English public, though, isn't it? And we have the memory of a small soap dish. We're like a child. We're playing with a toy, and then we drop it, and we forget about it instantly because we start playing with another one or trying to rip the head off a stuffed bear or, whatever it might be. Don't you reckon a fish in a tank has a memory of 3 seconds?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I don't know how they would measure that. How would they measure that?
I mean, they probably sat there and counted 3 seconds.
Yeah, and then asked it what its name is, and it can't remember, so proof positive. All right, thanks a lot, John. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, it'll be swimming around in its tank, and it'll come by one of them plastic castles, and it'll say, haven't I seen that somewhere before? Rings a bell. Troy says, my favourite word that people use on TV and the radio and they don't know how to say is Hyperbole. Hyperbole, he says. Unbelievably funny, and that's no exaggeration, says Troy. We were talking about this as well. Here's another one on that theme. Hi, Nick. Belvoir Castle is pronounced Beaver Castle, as the local Anglo-Saxons back in the day couldn't pronounce the Norman castle name of Belvoir, and it's stuck to this day. I bet that's misinformation as well. These people are just making this stuff up. Like he has a direct line to the local Anglo-Saxons back in the day. When was that exactly? And Andy in Plymouth says Freockheim in Angus is pronounced Freakham. If you go there, you'll understand why. They're freaking out in Freockheim. Going mental. 0345 6060 973. Here's another one on that score. Chloe says, well then, how do you pronounce Bicester or Worcestershire sauce? Come on, you know how to speak, says Chloe. Well, just barely. Yeah, why is Bicester spelt Bicester? What's the C and the E in there for, other than to just confuse non-locals? Bicester is Bicester. Why? It's obviously Bicester. I'm looking at it as I'm speaking, and that's what it looks like. Bicester. Why is it Bicester? Is that the time already? Blimey. We haven't talked about anything yet. God, doesn't it fly when you're out of your mind? Right, so I'll take some calls after the news because it would be a bit rude to take them now because they'll only have about 15 seconds. It's not my fault. This show was like this when I got here. Victoria in Glasgow says, oh, God, here's another one. Milngavie, Milngavie, is pronounced Milguy. Why? Milguy. So almost all of the letters in that word are silent, and some of them are replaced with completely different words, different letters. She says Milngavie, pronounced Milguy, near Glasgow, is a lovely area, and often people that do not know it read it as Milngavie, as I just did, Milngavie. Yeah, it's just to confuse the non-locals, isn't it? It's to make the locals feel superior. And Chris says, place names pronunciations don't match the spelling because most of the population were illiterate in the olden days, so they weren't updated. True story. In the olden days... 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on WhatsApp, it's the same number as the phone, 0345 6060 973. And finally in this hour, Nick in Coulsdon, which is not really how it looks, but Coulsdon is how it's said. If a lord paid for a new front gate for Starmer's home, would we call it Gate Gate?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Shut up.
So they opened their big mouths and out came talk. Talk.
Rob Tech, this is the last one from last night. Rob Tech's, Nick, I go in at the end of the month for a full shoulder replacement and live about 1 minute 30 from Stanmore, and I need to be there for 7 a.m. Now, is that 1 minute 30 or 1 hour 30? I'm going to have to assume it's 1 hour 30 because otherwise it doesn't make much sense. I go in at the end of the month for a full shoulder replacement, and I live about let's assume it's 1 hour 30. It's 1:30. That's how it's written. From Stanmore, and I need to be there for 7 a.m. Blimey. So you need to start out at 5:30, which means you need to get up at 4. That's pretty much like doing a breakfast show. 4 o'clock, you are going to be tired for a week, Rob. A shoulder replace? What are you getting it replaced with? Either way, I wish you all the best. 0345 6060 973. Okay, let's delve into tonight's now. How many of these have I got? Let's just scroll forward and see. Oh my God, they just go on forever. Why can't these people just leave me alone? This text says, "Hi Nick. Unfortunately, Fancy Pants Starmer and his travelling circus appear to be a gaggle of talentless clowns. I'm confident as they pedal away on their current trajectory, they'll end up being equally obnoxious as the gaggle of talentless clowns they've replaced." No. Not even close. That's impossible. Eh, Liz?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. He says, "I hope I'm wrong." You are. "So far, I'm not optimistic." Cheer up, mate. It might never Oh, no, that's right. It already has. He says, "On a positive note, your lovely..." Is this a he? Don't know. "On a positive note, your lovely Saturday show combined with a large glass of cream sherry always lifts the spirits."
Booze.
"Muchas gracias, muchacho." Well, don't ask me. I can barely speak English. Never mind about French. "No, it's not French, you stupid moron. It's like English. It's like German or something. Why can't you do your homework?" San Francisco. Mike.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to add to it. I found a site that it said that the assertion that the World Series invented by the New York World is false.
False.
It had a big red X over it.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So the first World Series was held, I read, in 1903. I think it would be between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Boston Red Sox, and so they're an old thing. But I think I don't know why they call it the World Series. That's homework. I'd have to look it up. But I would assume that since baseball was sort of invented here in the United States, they probably thought they were the only ones that played it, which at that time probably made a certain amount of sense.
Well, apart from Japan, they still are the only ones that play it, aren't they?
Exactly.
Apart from, and you're probably not going to like this, Mike,
Yep.
apart from girls in British schools who play a thing called rounders, which is baseball without the spitting and the hats.
I always wondered why how baseball was invented. I think, and I thought its relationship to cricket is undeniable. But I think we invented baseball because we don't have the brain power here to figure out how to score cricket. So we came up with baseball because it was easier.
Easier, yeah. Well, it makes more sense. I mean, just 1 point for getting... I mean, and now I'm delving into territories, as usual, that I have got absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. How is baseball scored? You go around once, hit all the bases, and you get 1 point? Is that it?
Yes.
Well, right. Well, there you go. That makes perfect.
If you can hit it hard enough, you get the point without having to, you run around.
You get a home run,
but you don't have to do it.
Right. You pop it out of the stadium and hit somebody's car in the car park, then you get maximum points.
Exactly so. Well, one thing I wanted to mention before you let me go on pronunciation, you have been calling our hurricane Helene.
Helene, yeah.
And nobody pronounces it that way. It's Helene, and we've been saying Helene for 2 weeks. I had an American friend in college who had a British girlfriend who was named Helene, and she was beautiful. Just so you know.
And wasn't like a local catastrophe at all. Yeah, she didn't lay waste to large areas of America. No.
Oh, I wish she would have, though. Anyway.
You wanted her to lay waste to you, personally. Well, that's a matter that's beyond the prescription for this show. But I appreciate the confession there, Mike. And it will be held against you. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Alex in Crawley says, I grew up and went to school in... Oh, God, here we go. Well, it looks like Wymondham, but it's probably pronounced lose. Wymondham. How would you pronounce that? Wham? I mean, most of the letters presumably aren't pronounced. They're there, but for the purpose of confusion. Confusing the uninitiated. Alex in Crawley says, I grew up and went to school in Wymondham, so my ears pricked up last night with your conversation about the pronunciations. Nearby to Wymondham, the North Norfolk has the villages of Stiffkey, pronounced Stokey. So there's 2 F's in there, and you don't pronounce either of them, for crying out loud. And Happisburgh, pronounced Haysborough. Oh, come on, that's just ridiculous. That's not even close. Happisburgh. Happisburgh. Happisburgh is Haysborough. How? Almost none of the letters in that word are pronounced. After H, you're on your own. And Wymondham is apparently Wyndham, which is also ridiculous. He says, fortunately, they'll soon fall into the sea, so it should help out foreigners, as in non-Norfolk people. Well, it can't happen soon enough. Those people have got it coming. He says, I would have called in, but I'm not sure spellings work quite as well when not written down. No, they don't. 0345 6060 973. Canterbury, Karen.
Oh, hello. Can you still hear me?
No.
Oh, right. First of all, yes. I've listened to you for eons, and I can't believe that I'm actually getting to talk to you. But
you're here, Karen. It's a dream come true.
Good. I'm glad, but I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to correct you on my first call.
Yes.
There is evidence, which I have seen with my own eyes, of Margaret Thatcher on a zip wire.
Well, why can't I pull that up out the World Wide Web then? I've asked
Don't
Google.
Go on the World Wide Web, go on BBC iPlayer, The Plot to Kill Thatcher.
Yeah, but that's not a documentary, though. It's a drama, isn't it?
No. It's a documentary. It's about the Brighton bombing.
Well, how come Google doesn't know about this?
Oh, Google.
Google. Yeah, should have said Google. I thought Google knew everything. I put in Thatcher zip wire and nothing comes up.
Right, go on YouTube and put The Plot to Kill Thatcher, Brighton bombing zip wire or something like that.
Right.
And she will come up. But I promise you she's there. I've seen her with my own eyes.
With at least one of your eyes, right.
Because I thought Boris copied that.
He copied Margaret Thatcher. See, I put that in and I'm still not coming up with anything, so I think that you are disseminating misinformation. Is this false news?
Eh? No.
Are you a fake news disseminator?
I am not. I am not a tinfoil hat wearing person.
All right, well, I'll have to investigate thoroughly, and I want you to leave it with me, all right?
You do, my love.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Karen.
Good night.
Cheers, my dear. I don't believe a word of it. I mean, how can I put in Margaret Thatcher's zip wire into Google and nothing featuring her comes up. How? How is that possible? I mean, Bodger comes up right enough.
Yeah. Wait.
And as I said before, I'm still furious with whoever let him down. He could still be up there, you know. The amount of grief that we would have avoided if nobody had actually let him down. He'd still be up there, like a deflated balloon. The misery we could have avoided. Ain't that right, Bodge? Can't comment on that. No, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Tariq in Chertsey says, can the US presidential election really be as close as the polls suggests? I'm genuinely unclear.
I'm genuinely unclear.
Yeah, apparently it is. Unless they're lying about that. Because we were discussing this last night as well, and there is evidence that certain pollsters and pundits and so on are making it appear as though it's neck and neck, and that Trump is actually sort of edging ahead in certain states. Now, to the innocent observer over here, it seems hard to believe that anybody in their right mind... All right, let me start that sentence again. That anybody in America would be prepared to vote for Donald Trump. But apparently he's ahead with men at about 12 points, something like that. And they... In America, they seem to be equating voting with women, voting for a woman. If a man votes for a woman, that makes you gay. And this isn't on, like, social media sites or anything like that. This is on the bloomin' news, or as close as Fox News is to news. They're actually saying that. You know, real men don't vote for women because that makes you, that would increase America's swishification. And you wouldn't believe that this stuff is actually coming out on the television. And American men seem to agree. Not remotely interested in voting for a woman. Not now, not ever, never. And women, on the other hand, are fully on board with Kamala Harris. Now, women tend to go out and vote more regularly than men do because, men are too busy picking their nose and drinking beer and shooting things. Whereas women actually care about the future of their country because, they've given birth to toddlers that are the future of the country. But men are so desperate not to appear... It's not even really gay. I mean, it's just like feminine, to be aware of your feminine side, or not to feel threatened by having a woman boss, or somebody who is female being above you in the food chain. That they can't bring themselves to even consider voting for a woman, no matter who she is and who the alternative is. It's absolutely incredible what's happening over there. Can the US presidential election really be as close as the poll suggests, as Tariq? Well, it could be, but as I was sort of half finished saying before I got onto that, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Trump acolytes are making it appear as though Trump is going to win, so that if he doesn't, they will feel that, they will bring their cult fans along with them by claiming that it was the election was stolen, and then it's going to be that thing that we went through 4 years ago all over again. Was it 4 years ago or 5 years ago? It seems like a lifetime. They're going to be doing it again. And come the day after the polling takes place, no winner will be announced. I bet you. It's going to go on for weeks, if not months. A lot of people are going to get dead. There's going to be riots, and it's really kicking off over there. I mean, I think that country has entirely lost its mind. Martin says, Nick, watching a Trump rally in Vegas just now with all his banjo players, they were... Did he actually have banjo players? He says, they're actually advertising a Trump combat knife. The thing has the stars and stripes on it and looks like it could take out a rhino. I wonder where it was made. Shall we guess? China.
This is LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What's he got to be depressed about?
360 million people and what they might do in about a month's time. 0345 6060 973. This text says, no way on earth burning trillions of tons of coal, oil and gas could affect the weather. That's stupid and woke. It must be Bill Gates and his liberal his liberal lasers. Yeah, people believe this stuff. I mean, it is actually incredible that the human race seems to be... I don't know, I think the human race has peaked. I don't know quite when it was, perhaps somewhere in the 1970s. Shall we say the year that Led Zeppelin released Physical Graffiti?
Rock and roll!
It was probably then. Ever since, we've been on an ever more vertiginous decline, mentally speaking. I mean, all the evidence is there before your eyes. Look, and you will see. The human race has peaked. It's all downhill from here. Oh, blimey, I'm going to have to say this again. There is a film called Idiocracy. Now, I find it hilarious. You may think it's beneath you, but if you have a couple of schooners...
Booze.
Before, to get you in the mood, then I think you'll find it amusing too. And terrifying in equal measure. Because it used to be a comedy about the future. Now it's a documentary about the present. And everything that's in that film was made overly ridiculous. And then it all came true. Then it all came true. I mean, they had a clown as a president.
A president? Can you believe it?
And then it became true. For instance, Idiocracy. Look it up on the World Wide Web. You'll love it. Liberal lasers. Yeah. Okay, I'll take this call now, and I won't believe a single solitary word that they say, but I'll take it anyway. Dorset. Hello, Jeff.
Hello there, Nick.
Hello there, Jeff.
Are you all right there?
Yes, very good, thanks.
Can you please stand corrected?
Or can I sit corrected?
Well, you can do whatever you like, but the lady that you disputed the zip wire Margaret Thatcher incident with was perfectly correct. I actually recorded the Brighton bombing programme, which I think was earlier in the week, and actually watched it so that it finished about half an hour ago. And I couldn't believe it, but there she was on a zip wire.
Doing what?
Well, just being zipped. What else do you do on a zip wire?
Being zipped? No.
Well, it was a very brief... Hang on. It was a very brief shot of her wrapped up in sort of like swaddling clothes, sitting in a chair that was attached to a wire. So, it didn't show anything other than that, but I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
Oh,
so there you are.
Right.
The lady was right. Google is wrong. Google's rubbish about most things anyway, isn't it?
No, it's always right about everything, frighteningly.
Except on this occasion.
Well, I've just put in zip chair, and one solitary picture has come up with no other info. I could visit the site. Wait a minute.
Well, why don't you just do the iPlayer thing and find the Brighton bombing programme and watch the hour and a half that it takes to find the 5-second image of Margaret Thatcher in a zip wire chair.
Well, there is a very good reason why I don't do that right now.
Because you're earning a small fortune on the radio.
Doing a radio show. Correctamundo, yeah. I see that now. She's being hoisted from one ship to another. That's it, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I
See,
don't know what
now,
it was.
I don't think that's a zip wire. I think that's called something else. I think it's a bosun.
Well,
is it a
no, come on,
bosun's chair?
You're what's the word?
Nitpicking.
Splitting hazels or something.
Yeah, I'm exactly right. Yeah, I'm being nitpickish. Yeah.
Very worrying about Trump, though, in America, isn't it? I mean, to be honest, all those people who go to his rallies, it looks like they've gone to the circus for the first time with all the shouting and screaming, hooping and hollering. But there you go. It's infected us in this country now, hasn't it? I'm an old bugger. I'm in my 85th year.
85th year. Yeah, you made it.
Anyway,
all right, good talk to you.
More interesting stuff.
All right, will do. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't mean to be rude, but all of the people that turn up for Donald Trump's safe space rallies look like morons. That's just a fact. That is factually accurate. They just look like there's something wrong with them, like they've been hit in the head with a hammer or some other blunt instrument. They're probably self-inflicted, trying to cure the headache that they gave themselves by hitting themselves in the head with a blunt instrument. Bill in Northern Ireland says, for the first time in my 53 years of life on this planet, I brushed my teeth while taking a shower this morning. I have never done that. Well, you are multitasking there, Bill. He says, what a revelation. I saved 2 minutes of my time in the morning and got to run the water while brushing my teeth without without feeling guilty about it. It saves time and it helps save the planet. It also got me thinking, what else could I do while taking a shower to save time?
Disgusting.
Stop thinking that right now, Bill. I mean it. But you're brushing your teeth with warm water. Oh.
Dreadful.
That's, You don't know where that water's been. I mean, it has to go through all sorts of procedures to get warm. You want to put that in your mouth? I don't even want to put it on my person. My precious person. Now, that doesn't sound like a very good idea. I mean, how busy are you, for crying out loud? You've got to save 2 minutes of your time in the morning. I've never brushed my teeth in the shower in my life, and I don't intend to start now. This text says, if Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is one of the chief dinglings in the Republican Party, I mean, if, like, there are wingnut, it's the party of wingnuts, but there is a wingnut wing of the wingnut party. And she is at the very edge of it. She says, if Marjorie Taylor Greene believes the Democrats can control the weather, does that mean she now believes in man-made climate change? Yeah, no. In that order. Just no. Weirdly, they can hold those two thoughts at the same time. They don't believe in man-made climate change, and they also believe that man can change the climate. I mean, like I said, morons. We're surrounded by morons. And every single one of them can vote. What can we do to persuade them not to? We could try distracting them with shiny objects, perhaps. I'll get onto the chemtrails thing because, I mean, all of the things that I wanted to talk about last night, I want to talk about tonight. And, so far, not much. I just keep being distracted. It's not my fault. Durham, Luca.
Hello.
Luca.
I'm here to be another distraction for you. I hear you were just complaining about us.
Us?
Yeah, well, the listeners. Your loyal listeners.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, it's very rare that I'm listening to the program live, actually, because normally I'd be listening to the podcast.
Right.
It's my regular weekend routine. And for whatever reason, it wasn't up on the interwebs yesterday on Global Player.
What?
I know. It's very disappointing. And the reason I wanted to call in, especially, was because it feels so different. Because I listen to the podcast on 1.5 times speed, you see. So everything you say, I get all your information very rapidly.
Right.
And it's very, very different, especially to hear the sound effects.
Why do you listen to it at 1.5 times speed? I mean, that to me would ruin it. What would be the point of that?
That way, I can listen to both of your weekend shows, Friday's show and Saturday's show, in one weekend. I mean, I also have James O'Brien to get through during the week as well. I'm one of those.
Or do you listen to him at 1.5 times speed?
I do. Sometimes I bump him up even faster.
Oh, faster than that, right.
Yeah, his shows get quite long, so in order to get through all the content during the week, I have to speed it up a little more.
Right. Well, you know what would be even quicker than that?
What could possibly be faster than that?
Not listening to us at all.
Well, I don't know. That seems... I've been... My mother and I, who... She originally got me into LBC. We've been patrons for a long time, and it's part of my, cooking and daily weekend routine that I have you on and listening and espousing your wisdom into the airwaves.
Luca, try slowing down just a little bit. Relax. Let life just drift slowly by.
Perhaps I've been affected by the 1.5 times speed list that I've been listening to myself.
It does sound like you're a little bit speeded up right now.
Yeah, I need to live my life more slowly.
Put your brain into neutral and float downstream.
Groovy.
Will you do that for me?
I will try my very best.
Right.
The other thing is, I knew which sound effect you were going to play just then. Before you'd even pressed the button, it was already playing in my head, but at a faster speed. I had to recondition myself.
Yeah, it was going to be either one or the other. It was going to be
Groovy
or
Yowza.
And I picked the former. Yeah. If only you put money on it. If only you put money on it, Luca, you'd be a millionaire by now. All right, I wish you all the best. Thanks a lot, mate. Try living life at normal speed. You never know, you might like it.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
I think this is nonsense.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. We're still not missing you, by the way. But we will know where to find you if we do. You'll be in the shed where they keep the tools. This text says... a moment, please. Getting rid of the ones that I've read already. Nick, do you know Nighty Night by Julia Davis? Somehow I got a flavour of it years ago, so I was pleased to find it in a charity shop on DVD recently, and I am delighted to see how some of it was filmed in my hometown of Dorking. I guess I am very observant, which is how I miss nothing when it comes to seeing what those around me are like. Well, what are they like? Don't leave us in suspense. Rick and Seaham says, almost certainly not pronounced like that. Hi, Nick, have you heard the latest from Little Donny? He's now claiming that if Harris is elected, that the Dems will get rid of windows in buildings and get rid of cows. They'll get rid of windows. They're going to ban our windows. It's a disgrace. And they're going to get rid of cows. How? By eating them. He is just totally unhinged. And I just cannot believe that people can sit there and listen to what he says and think, yep, that's the guy for me. It just blows my mind. I mean, we had a weird-haired disseminator of misinformation ourselves.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
But, I mean, he was bad, but he wasn't that bad, was he? Maybe it's just the way that he expressed himself wasn't as bad, but he was actually as bad a person. Yeah, I'd be prepared to believe that. This text from Martin Utoxeter, Utoxeter. Nick, please tell me you've looked up or heard Trump's speech about the Biden circles and how level they are. Yes. He goes around in these circles, and it's circles among circles, and the circles of my mind. It is absolutely alarming. Now, does anybody think that if Trump actually becomes president, that he would last in that role for more than about a day before he is deemed unfit for office by the vice president, who would then take over? And then you might as well have the Taliban running America. I mean, he is just totally out to lunch, that guy. If you're a woman in America, be alarmed now and save time later. Devon, hello, Rose.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Oh, hello, Rose.
You take the mickey out of me, don't you?
No. Only as much as I take the mickey out of everybody, including me.
Oh, my God, I've just fallen over backwards. Just a minute. Oh, Jesus. Oh, it's all right. I obviously don't need you to take the mickey out of me, do I?
But you held the phone to your head all the while.
Well, you're so important, you see.
What did you fall over?
It's all right. I'm sitting on a stool,
Yes.
and I slipped backwards and knocked some things off a nearby table, but I'll check it out later.
It sounds a little bit like in my youth, I was listening to a radio station that used to be on a ship, and it was from a point at sea to the circles of your mind. This is the new Radio Caroline.
Radio Caroline,
yeah. And the record ended, and there was just a silence for what seemed like quite a long time. And then he said, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I fell off my chair."
Oh, I love it. Talking of in my youth,
yeah,
I didn't used to find pints of beer too much. Gurgle, gurgle, the more the better, really.
Well, it depends what you've eaten, because, you know, some foods and beer, it just doesn't mix, because you just bloat right up. But if you just had a small beer, then that would be better than just pouring endless pints down your mouth.
Oh, well, that was the idea, really. Lots and lots of oral gratification, I suppose. Now, I've got one other thing before. I've got a story about dinglings, or related to dinglings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My family name, I couldn't resist just touching on it. My family name, all the letters are redundant apart from the first and the last. But I probably ought not to say more about it.
No, I wouldn't if I were you. No.
All right.
It's spelled Smith, and it's pronounced Jones. Yeah.
No. But you probably, I better not, I suppose.
No, I wouldn't if I were you, no.
You can imagine why I was it's a bit difficult to resist, but
yeah.
I love it anyway. I love it. I love all these names that are pronounced wrong. I don't know. I just find it rather enjoyable. But I had this experience. It was actually ages ago, about 3 years ago, was it? And I was just got chatting to this very, normal-looking woman, a bit rural in Devon, in this shop.
Normal for Devon, yeah.
Yes. No, I mean, she sounded intelligent as we started the conversation about sort of world events, and gradually it was more about who has the power and why, and where are they, and it led up to, I can see this now, we were walking out of the shop to her car, and she said, well, of course you know perfectly well that all the Beatles songs were written by politicians in America in order to influence us subliminally in the way that they wanted to.
Wow.
Honestly, and I looked at her, I said, you may be a little paranoid. She just looked at me pityingly.
Yes.
And said, well, it's true.
Don't
it's
you know
true.
anything?
Total conviction, Nick.
I have not heard that one before. All of the Beatles songs were written by politicians in America in order to, what was it?
Well, control us subliminally. The subliminally was her word.
Right. Well, at least she was
power.
Together enough to say the word subliminal. Subliminally. Which is not hard, which is, pretty tough, actually. Subliminally. Subliminally.
No, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah. That is a new one on me. I've never heard that one before.
Well, it was a bit scary as well. I mean, down here in England, in, an ordinary shop and ordinary-looking person, that was what was scary.
Yeah, I mean, I heard the one that Paul McCartney died, and that's why he wasn't wearing shoes on the zebra crossing. Or, the famous picture on the front of
Abbey Road.
Abbey Road, yeah. They said that that's not him, and you can tell because the clue is he hasn't got shoes on. Why didn't he have shoes on when he was crossing Abbey Road? That doesn't sound like a very good idea to me.
No. And that he died?
Yeah.
Oh, heaven's sake. See, the thing is, Nick, why do people want to be finding out all these things in the first place? I mean, I think it even goes down to... Well, I was just going to quickly say, I do feel that personally... I would rather not know things than faff about on Google like that. I mean, who cares? All these bloody bits of information.
Yeah, I don't think it's Google. It's social media. And I think the reason why people seek this stuff out, and once they've found something that chimes with their belief system, the reason that it's so difficult to get them off it is because they feel that they have uncovered a secret that is not available to the general public. Yes. That the governments of not just this country, but the governments of the world are keeping from us, and they have found it. So that makes them feel superior because they know something you don't know.
Yeah. Because actually that's what people are like anyway in basic life, isn't it? I know when I just think immediately in my situation when I was looking for somewhere else to live, forcibly, and people would say things that were so just what you didn't want to hear. Well, everyone's doing Airbnb. There are no rentals. Yeah. Everyone's doing Airbnb. And I said this to a friend of mine who was a therapist as well, and I said, well, everyone isn't doing Airbnb, she said. People just need to think they know.
Right. Bingo. Yes.
And it's the same with everything.
Yeah, it is. And the more outrageous the belief, the more that they cling to it, because the more it seems as though they have uncovered some huge secret that is that has been hidden from, us sheeple by the man. And the more extreme it is, the more they cling to it, because it becomes too much loss of face to actually admit that they've been had. I mean, it's the same reason that people keep voting for politicians that act against their interests, or they cling to the belief that Brexit will somehow deliver all of the things that were promised eventually if they just keep waiting and believing long enough, because it's too much loss of face to admit that they were had. Because being had comes with being not
ashamed.
Ashamed and feeling as though you're not as intelligent as others who weren't had, and so there's shame that comes with it, and that's one of the reasons that people cling on to these beliefs once they've expressed them out loud, or they've sort of slotted themselves in with that issue or that belief. It's too much loss of face, and for Brexit and things like that, it's too much loss of hope to give that up, so they won't. They're gone. You might as well not engage, Rose.
Can I say something quickly about why I think the people vote against their own interests? Because I think of my grandmother in this, voted Tory.
Yeah.
I assume she did because she had her hearse go round past the Conservative Club where she used to go meet people. She brought up 4 children on virtually no money most of it before the welfare state.
Yeah.
And she still voted Conservative. And I think I know why. I think because there's nothing more important than your sense of who you are. And if you think that whatever your financial circumstances, you are of the same breed as the important people, then you're not going to vote with the rabble-rousing Labour Party.
Yes, because you don't want to be associated with them, and you also, I believe that is true, but there's also that you vote for a party that has always demonstrated its allegiance to the rich, because you think that at some point in the future you will become one of those people.
Do you really think that people think that?
I think people instinctively feel that they are special and that their ordinary life isn't it, that they are waiting for their life to begin. I mean, you must have remembered at some point in your life that you thought, God, when's my life going to begin? And then the dawning realisation comes, no, this is it. It's begun already. The gun fired years ago, and you are running around the tracks at this moment.
Well, I'm still waiting.
Any moment now.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot, Rose.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm super. Thanks for asking. 0345 6060 973. Martin in Northampton says, hi, Nick. There's one obvious flaw in the arguments made by MAGA and the Christian nationalists. it proposes that Kamala Harris is more powerful than their God. I'm sure that such a proposition would be regarded as a most communist form of blasphemy. Yeah. I mean, if MAGA do believe, as they do, that Donald Trump was sent by God in order to save America, which they do actually believe that, of all the people in all the world that God would select, you know, but he does move in mysterious ways. That's what I heard. But if it is God's intention that Donald Trump is the President of the United States of America, then he could make it so. Why does Donald Trump need to go out and do all of that politicking? Why does he need to have those safe space rallies? I mean, why even bother to go vote? I mean, God could just magic that out of thin air, couldn't he? Plus, if Kamala Harris and her evil entourage are actually changing the weather in order to smash hurricanes into Republican states to prevent them from voting, don't you think that God would be able to do something about that? I mean, even if God was asleep, he'd be able to do something about that. If he was doing other things at the time, he could just lift a finger and change the course of a hurricane. Yeah, but don't try to engage these people in argument. Just smile sweetly and back slowly out of the room. No sudden movements. This is from CNN. This is about another one of these dingling Looney Tunes conspiracy theories. Decades-old and long-debunked myths about so-called chemtrails have become a central part of the wild conspiracy theory that falsely asserts that the US government used non-existent weather manipulation technology to create the devastation caused by hurricanes Helene and Milton. And they felt it necessary to make it clear that it's a false assertion and that these are non-existent weather manipulation technologies. They felt that they had to actually put that in the sentence. The conspiracy theory is being promoted by right-wing influencers online, some with millions of followers, who have a long track record of echoing false claims about the last presidential election. And you know why they do that? Because fishing for morons makes money. It's all about the money, honey. It says the hurricanes, some of these influencers baselessly claim, again, they felt necessary to reassure us that these are baseless claims. The hurricanes, some of these influencers baselessly claim, were deliberately steered toward Trump-supporting communities as part of a plot to steal next month's election from former President Donald Trump. Of course, practically none of his cult fans actually believe that he lost the last election. They just cannot. Even his vice presidential pick, that weirdo J.D. Vance, he can't bring himself to say that Donald Trump lost the last election. He was asked over and over and over again. He cannot say the words yes. Probably because he thinks that Daddy is listening. And Daddy will be very, very upset. And they're just... It's just beyond... I cannot imagine what is going on in their heads. What do you think, Donny?
I love the poorly educated.
Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. As myths about Milton and Helene hurricanes spread, interesting chemtrails increased too on Google search and social media. Chemtrail conspiracy theorists falsely believe, again, CNN felt it was necessary to put that in there, in case you were wondering, falsely believe condensation trails, known as contrails, left behind by aircraft in the sky are full of toxic chemicals spread by the government to control the weather or to control people's minds. And I'd have to say that if the plan is to control people's minds to make them more stupid, then they're doing a bang-up job.
Thank you.
In reality, scientists say contrails appear when water vapor condenses and freezes around the exhaust from an aircraft. But, you know, these are just facts, so no one is remotely interested in any of them. It's much more likely to be Bill Gates, seeding the air with invisible microchips that we breathe in that turns us into robots.
Affirmative.
Despite the lack of evidence to support it, the so-called chemtrail conspiracy theory has endured for decades. It hasn't just endured, it's getting bigger and bigger. More and more people are believing this stuff. One weather lab at Harvard University received so many abusive and threatening messages about chemtrails, it published a fact sheet on its website debunking the conspiracy theory. A fact sheet on Harvard University's website. The dinglings aren't going to read that. The post on the Harvard Lab website reads, "We have not seen any credible evidence that chemtrails exist. If we did see any evidence that governments were endangering their own citizens in the manner alleged in the chemtrails conspiracy, we would be eager to expose and stop such activities." The conspiracy theory's staying power is in part due to a small but committed group of pseudoscientists who have made it their life's work to promote and try to prove the myth true. Yeah, they should be committed. While their influence is usually confined to fringe blogs and other online sources, the myth occasionally rears its head and penetrates the mainstream. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was just recently running for president and bowed out in order to support Trump, he tweeted, "We are going to stop this crime," in relation to the contrails thing. In April, Tennessee lawmakers passed a bill banning the release of airborne chemicals that was inspired by this myth. They passed a law to stop something that's not happening. Guess which party Tennessee tends to vote for? Yeah, that's right. The Dingaling Party. A climate scientist called Daniel Swain at the University of California, Los Angeles, says, "This has been around for a long time in different forms, but what I think is different is the intensity and the breadth of it. This used to be something that would be rather fringe," by which I think he means Looney Tunes. He says it didn't have an audience of tens to hundreds of millions, if not more than that, as it had in recent weeks, he said. There was a headline on InfoWars, run by that disgraced conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, that read, "Treason alert, the Biden-Harris administration have been in control of hurricanes Helene and Milton using Pentagon weather weapons." Yeah, and I might find it funny, and you might find it funny, but the millions of people that follow this loon, they don't find it funny at all. They believe everything he says. He's the guy that forever said that the Sandy Hook school shooting was staged, and that all those children didn't actually die, and that all the parents were making it up. For years, he's been hounding them. Stu Peters, who has almost 700,000 followers on X, falsely asserted on his online show on Tuesday that Jewish people were steering hurricanes. Republican and 2020 election denier Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has been spreading the conspiracy theory that deadly wildfires in California were ignited by space lasers controlled by the Rothschild Investment Bank. She's an elected representative for the state of Georgia, and she's running again and is ahead in the polls in that state. They're going to re-elect her. A woman who thinks that deadly wildfires in California were ignited by Jewish space lasers. But, in a sign of hope, she is also thought of as a total wingnut everywhere else in America. So maybe it's a Georgia thing. Like Ray Charles, I've got Georgia on my mind, and it sounds like this. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on WhatsApp, then the number is the same. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10, Nick Abbott, LBC. Your husband's a loon, Melania.
I don't care.
She's actually not that bothered.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
I am not one of your fans!
Everything is going extremely well.
You bet your life it is. This text says, I agree about the strange irregularities of the English... Hi, Nick. I agree about the strange irregularities of the English language. Why is the plural of moose, moose, when the plural of goose is geese? Why is it that 2 times is still referred to as twice, while thrice for 3 times is no longer used? And thrice doesn't even exist. It would be quicker to say thrice than 3 times. Maybe you could mention the word in your show from time to time in an effort to reintroduce it to everyday vocabulary. Well, let me think about that for a second.
No.
Andrew in Shrewsbury says, Dear Nick Abbott, surely Stormy Daniels controls the weather. Yeah, well, I can think of a couple of jokes, but I'm not going to actually say them out loud.
Disgusting.
But I'm thinking them. And this says, to be fair, if a presidential candidate could actually control the weather, then that would be pretty useful. Could we ask her for some sunshine tomorrow or Monday, please? Well, I think we're going to get some sunshine tomorrow or Monday. It's going to be pretty chilly. Tomorrow, 53 this is in London, 53 degrees and sunny tomorrow, and 59 degrees and sunny on Monday. Of course, listeners in Glasgow will get their own weather. I can check on that while you wait. One moment, please. Ooh, blimey. 2 days when it's not raining? Pfft, rubbish. It will be raining tomorrow and sunny on Monday. Hey, you're going to dry out on Monday. It will also not be raining on Tuesday. But normal service is resumed on Wednesday and every day for the rest of your lives. Never mind, eh? What else? John says, it's all the hormone beef the Americans eat. It's rotted their brains. Yeah, well, there's definitely something in the beef or the water or a combination of all of the above. Yeah, there's something up over there, definitely. Maybe this caller can alert us as to what it might be. Peering over the border, it's Nick in Vancouver.
Oh, I've tried not to look, Nick. It frightens me far too much.
Right.
I can't tell you what's wrong with them down south, but I do think inevitably we're eventually going to return to the days when we start claiming that uppity women are witches and we start throwing them in ponds to see if they float.
Yeah.
And it seems we're inevitably devolving down to the level of she's a witch and, oh, lightning god is angry at us.
Yes.
It's like we're just becoming dumber by the day.
That's true. I mean, I go back to my assertion that the human race has peaked. We don't seem to be getting better. We seem to be reverting to some sort of cave-like Neanderthal state.
Yes, and an unpleasant cave-like Neanderthal state as well. I think Idiocracy got it wrong in the sense that at least in Idiocracy, people were stupid, but at least basically fairly pleasant. They just wanted to get drunk and screw around.
Yeah.
Whereas what we have really reverting to is the worst tendencies of, again, I'm sure cannibalism will rear its ugly head at some point in time. You know, the winner of the election will have to ritually eat the loser of the election in order to take on his power.
Well, all of these things, they initially sound amusing, but then you think about it for more than about 10 seconds and you think, I think that's precisely where we're going.
Well, I mean, the one good thing would be if you're a woman that could survive a dunk in a British pond, bearing in mind where British waterworks are, you probably are a witch, and so therefore maybe you should be burnt. I don't know.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if you can survive a ducking, then you're probably not human in the first place. Yeah.
yes, but I'm waiting for someone to claim that contrails are actually dragons or something. It's coming. We know it's coming. Why? I don't know. We should be smarter. We have access to all the information in the world at our fingertips. 10 years ago, my worry was pornography, and now I'm thinking that's the least of the worries of the internet.
Definitely.
It's literally making us dumber by the minute.
It's extraordinary,
I don't
really,
understand
because
why.
well, I think that the internet is both the greatest information tool that has ever been invented outside of the printing press, and it's also the greatest tool for misinformation that has ever been invented outside of. Well, I can't think of anything that's worse. It just depends.
It is scary.
It just
really
depends
is.
how you use it, I suppose. It depends on how smart you were when you were introduced to the internet in the first place, because it's probably not going to make you smarter if you arrived looking for stupid stuff, because there's no end of it.
Well, I mean, I'm just hoping that there is a liberal elite that runs everything, because if there isn't, we're in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah. Well, you aren't. You're over the border. You'll be just fine. They can't shoot that far, can they?
Well, I was travelling in Seattle, which is maybe an hour's drive from Canada,
a
couple of years ago, and my car is from British Columbia, so it's got license plates British Columbia, and a guy in Seattle wanted to know how I got my car up from Columbia and whether the feds were worried about cocaine or what have you.
Wow.
And I had to explain to him, no, I live about 20 minutes away from your house in the country north of you that's been there for 150 years.
Yeah.
And he had no clue that Canada was not part of the US, or that British Columbia was a province in Canada. And he seemed like a reasonably bright human being, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we'll be safe up here. They just won't be able to find us.
Yeah. Don't make any noise, Nick. Just be very, very quiet. Yeah. All right, good talk. Thanks a lot. 0345 6060 973. David in Cleethorpes says, I have noticed in our country that when the weather forecasters say it's going to be warm and sunny, it is warm and sunny. And when they say it will rain, it rains. Why don't they just say it will be nice and sunny, and then we can all enjoy some lovely weather? Well, that's a good idea. There's a man who's thought it out. If they would just say that it's going to be nice, then it'll be nice. They're always right about that sort of thing. Brackets, apart from Glasgow, obviously, says David. Yeah, well, obviously. Graham in Alicante texts, skiers should be careful by what be careful what he wishes for. DP World has already committed to spending... Oh, God, it was a very, very long text. Is this worth reading out? Because I'm not really very interested in talking about DP World. DP World has already committed to spending £1 billion to double the size of its London Gateway port operation, clearly because it sees this as a profitable endeavour. Well, yeah, they're not doing it to do us a favour. If they're going to spend £1 billion, then they're expecting to make £10 billion back. But its implied criticism of Louise Haigh could come back to haunt him, as some of that investment is earmarked for port automation that will eradicate many highly skilled jobs. Yes, large numbers of new jobs will be created at the port's logistics park, but these will be mainly low-skilled roles, emptying the containers by hand and palletising goods for distribution. There's a word I never thought I'd say in my entire life. Palletising. That sounds like the complete opposite of Labour's stated aim for the UK population, and all the while creating profits for the government of Dubai that owns DP World. Well, I do believe that Graham in Alicante is completely correct in every respect. And they're apparently going to show up for that business meeting anyway, creating a big song and a dance about, oh, we're so upset that you criticised us for firing 800 people on video and then replacing them with people who are being paid something like £4 an hour. And here's the thing about low pay. People can't survive on it. You can work and work and work and work and work, and you cannot pay your bills on £4 an hour. Neither can you really pay your bills on minimum wage. You can't be done. You just can't have any kind of life on minimum wage. And there's so many people that are doing that. And the upshot is that us poor dopes who pay taxes make up the difference. So we are subsidising, in this particular case, Dubai. They've got all the money in the world. But apparently all the money in the world isn't enough. Yeah. I'm with Louise. How about you? 0345 6060 973. Tooting. Hello, Jan.
Oh, hi, Nick. Hi, good evening. No, I've been doing some searches online, and I must find out about this Thatcher business. And apparently, there's what I did find was on the press site. Am I allowed to say their name? Yeah, there's like the dailymail.com site, but I didn't want to sign up to it. But there was a lot of videos.
No, don't sign up to it.
I didn't want to give all of my information, like you didn't want to give information.
No.
They wanted so much information.
I know.
But apparently, Nick, there were a lot of images, that came up of
I latterly found
Margaret
some, and it was
Thatcher.
Margaret Thatcher in what I think is called a bosun's chair, isn't it? Going from one boat to another.
But apparently, Nick, there were a lot of they're stage managed.
What do you mean?
These videos that were there on the press site were staged. It says they were how Margaret Thatcher sparked stage managed videos. Yeah. So
what do you mean stage managed? What does that mean?
Well, there's a man. I didn't get his man. I could only get bits of information because I didn't want to sign on to the site because they wanted too much information.
Yeah, too much information.
But there was some man who was stage managing a lot of videos on Margaret Thatcher.
But when you say stage managing, do you mean they made them? Do you mean they made them up?
Well, I mean, they had a stunt, probably doing these. What do you call them? What was it? Wire.
A stunt person.
Yeah, they probably had someone stunt. But I was thinking that today something could be done by a fake AI of Margaret Thatcher doing what was it? Wire. Zip wire stunt.
I think it's called a bosun's chair. I may be wrong about that, but that's what's coming to mind. And I think it's to transport you from one ship to another at sea. And I do recall, now I don't know whether this is my memory playing tricks on me, but I do recall seeing something of that type back in the day when Thatcher, as we used to pronounce her name, was the leader of this country. Yeah.
Well, I did find
and I had my fingers crossed as to the success of the transfer between ships.
Oh yeah, but there's stuff on Boris Johnson's stunts of him doing stunts when he was a mayor. Yeah. But Nick,
he was a right mayor, by the way.
Oh yeah. Nick, but something, it's weird that because today with the AI, it's quite easy for someone to do a hit.
You can do anything you want with artificial intelligence.
Affirmative.
Yeah.
They could be put out as historic.
I don't know that you're real, for instance.
But Nick, something happened to me. I've got to share it with you because I was really. It's going back. It's how I got fooled by AI into thinking I was watching the World Cup match live, and only to find out I was actually. And I was cheering. I was thinking, oh, England's won. They're winning. They've got 5 goals. It all looks so real. But
when was that?
For the World Cup.
You were watching an AI trick that made it look as though you were watching the World Cup live, and it wasn't.
I had to tell my relative about it, and I said because I was cheering, I was on my own at home, and I thought I must catch it, I must watch it. The world watching it, the global event.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of searches online to catch it, and it said this is live, and there it was. The match was in process live,
and it looked like they were actually playing football. And England scored 5 goals.
And I was cheering, I was making quite a lot of noise cheering.
Now, you're not talking about that match that we played against Germany and we won 5-1. You're not talking about that, are you? It just wasn't a replay of that.
This is when England didn't win the World Cup.
Right, well, that doesn't really narrow it down for us, Jan.
Do you know what, Nick? It was actually, I found out when I watched the news afterwards, I thought, what was it I was watching?
Yeah.
And I found out it was a predictive match used for gambling that was built up on all the players. It looked so real, except for some shots. I thought they looked a bit garish when they were in close-up.
Garish.
It was an AI predictive match used for gambling.
Well, I've never heard of anything like it in my life. I am stunned.
No, well, look at me. I was stunned.
You're stunned too.
I was
Even to this
thinking,
day,
what
still
noise?
stunned. Yeah. By the way, Jan, get that blooming fire alarm thing fixed, for crying out loud. I can hear it chirruping in the background.
No, I've got nothing on.
Well, it sounded like it was chirruping in the background to me.
Oh, gosh.
Have you acquired a parrot? No?
I can't hear anything.
Are you, in fact, squeaking?
Well, the radio's turned down, so I'm just speaking to you, and I'm not in my kitchen.
No, not speaking, squeaking. Maybe you need oiling.
Oh, don't.
Anyway, I'll leave that with you. Thanks a lot, Jan.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
What in blazes goes on inside that head of yours?
0345 6060 973. Brian and crew texts, my conspiracy theory regarding the Trump supporters is that they have all been hypnotised. It's the only way they could all believe the crazy rubbish that they are spreading. I think it's worse than that, Brian. They haven't been hypnotised because that implies it was out with their control. I think they have deliberately and with malice aforethought joined a cult. Paul, and that is the reason that they'll believe absolutely anything that comes from the cult leader, no matter what gibbering rubbish he spouts. I'm saying it's gibbering rubbish, Donny.
Don't be rude.
Paul says, hi, Nick, the Conservatives have shown that they cannot find anyone unique to lead their party, especially with Robert Jenrick. Unique? Well, I think he's pretty unique, isn't it? Well, let's hope so. As in, there's only one of him. Ditto Badnock. Also, can I have 3/4 of a pint of beer and a packet of crisps, please? No. You're barred. 0345 6060 973. Cornwall, Malcolm.
Good evening, Nick.
Yes, sir.
Nick, I'm befuddled. I'm bewildered. I just do not understand people. We've had this week the Tory election, which has reached its ultimate stage now, and we've got one vote left.
Yeah.
And you've got callers calling in to LBC who are Conservative voters, and they're telling hosts things like, I think that Cammy Badnock is genuine. She'll make a fantastic Prime Minister.
She tells it like it is. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
I bet they've said that.
She's got the qualities to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking these people are just not real. They're not living in the real world, Nick.
Well, they're living in
think
their little world. Yeah.
We talk about America and we denigrate the Trump fans. But
Yeah.
I tell you, mate, these Tories, they are starting to
I
run
know. Let's not get superior. It's the exact same people who are funded by the exact same people on both sides of the Atlantic.
And I think that the medicine is working on both sides of the channel.
Yeah.
It is doing the snake oil, or whatever you want to call it. It is doing the trick, man.
They have
Because
both drunk the Kool-Aid in vast amount, in schooners.
I spoke to Ali Mirage. I don't know whether you ever listened to Ali Mirage, but I think Ali Mirage is a damn good listener. He's a Conservative, and he stood in a seat in Wales, and he lost. He lost to Labour. This was in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Ali Mirage talks an awful lot of sense. I spoke to him probably about, 8 months or so ago. And I said, Ali, imagine you're an almost normal person and you go to a selection meeting in a Conservative constituency because you understand, as a Tory MP, you're old school, you're traditional, you believe in you believe in you've got certain values that the Conservative Party hold and so on. You're almost normal. And Ali just burst out laughing.
He didn't slam the phone down on you when you suggested that he was almost normal.
No, but the point I was making was, I think Ali Mirage is almost normal. I think that's why he works at LBC and he appears on Sky newspaper review.
I think that is damning with faint praise. Almost normal.
Right, but my point... No. My point is this, right? And I tried to make the point to Ali Mirage, I think it was yesterday or the day before, this, that James Cleverly stood up in the conference. Now, bear in mind, I said it 8-9 months ago. James Cleverly stood up at the Tory Party conference and he said, we, the Conservative Party, we've got to at least start looking normal.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that?
Right, yes.
Were you aware of him saying that?
Yes, I was, yes.
But then I look at the two who won through, and it's
They're like cartoon characters.
Yes, and you can predict what's going to happen in 5 years' time. They're going to make Sunak look like an absolute saint, aren't they? You know, he was a dangerous person in my view.
Yeah, awful. I don't think because of his diminutive stature and his oily personality, I don't think people quite grasp.
Contend with thunder's roar, the spirits never bend, no matter the outcome. In the battle's ebb and flow. Fades and calm returns at last. Thunderous resolve and memory steadfast. In the heart's domain, where courage finds its place. Thunderous resolve in every embrace.
Well, he did an interview. And this interview was awful. I mean, the things he was saying. Who was it? It was the guy on. I think it was the guy on the BBC. No, Sky it was.
Yeah.
What was his name? Fred or something. He's got a really
Fred,
old school name.
Jeff, one of those blokes. Yeah.
Old school name. But anyway, and the guy was brilliant, and he kept on nailing Boris Johnson, pinning him down, and Johnson was flapping. But Johnson was. I mean, he was literally Trump with an English accent.
Yes, it's exactly right.
Every sentence was an absolute load of tosh and piffle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I just think that book of his, how can a publisher, how can shops sell utter nonsense?
I'll tell you the reason, Malcolm. In a nutshell, money. Yeah. Nothing trumps money, even for Trump. Yeah. Would you like to buy? Would you like to buy £100,000 watch? No.
So, yeah. Nick, sorry, actually, and finally, right? This. We spoke last night, and I don't normally like to phone twice on a weekend, but often I do. I like once enough for me.
Yeah.
Is at the weekend. But my point is this: really, really disappointed today at, again, you're not going to like this, Keir Starmer. And I tell you, as an aside, I think Keir Starmer now looks, when he's facing an interview and the interviewer, I think he looks alarmingly like a rabbit in the headlamps, scared.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't like his glasses, I'm afraid, they're going to have to go. But my major gripe
Where's he going to get somebody to pay for another pair?
Right, listen, my major gripe is this. It's been said, and there's a fellow on Sky who's really bugging me, a reporter, and he was trying to insinuate that Keir Starmer has backed the Arabs, and they've really piled into this girl for what she said, this lady who is the minister.
You're talking about the ports.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's all sorted now, and the Arabs are going to whoever they are.
Yeah, they're going to the meeting anyway. Yeah.
They're going to invest £1 billion into their port in Britain.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say, first and foremost, not a single port in Britain belongs to anybody. They might have the services or the opportunity to serve from that port, and provide services at that port. But in my view, the ports are British, and I think our journalists should be emphasising that. And that girl, I think, because when you think about it, Nick, and I looked at it this morning, the bill that the Labour Party introduced yesterday or the day before on workers' rights, the one says that the starting point is that the employer has to give the worker certain things.
Yes.
So the whole emphasis is flipped, and it was all about the hire and fire, right? Or rehire.
Yes.
Fire and rehire.
Yeah.
And there's another name for another aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
But the point I make is this. that the Labour Party, all of them to a month, have said what a disgusting situation it was. Now we're meant to believe, because of Sky and maybe the BBC, but I would say especially the BBC, we're meant to believe that suddenly Starmer has turned on everybody within the party and has said, no, we have to give these people from Saudi or wherever they are, we have to give them exactly what they want.
Yeah, no.
And I don't think I think what has happened, Nick, is I think that company, DP World, I think they have backtracked and they have twigged, well, hang on, we can't go against this big thing on money because there's an awful lot of money to be made in Britain.
They're not doing it as a favour to us. They're doing if they invest, they will be expecting to make at least 10 times that amount of money back.
And I think it's them who have backtracked, and I think Louise Hay hopefully has stood her ground, and she's the one who's actually...
I think it would be better for the nation if we had companies that were actually interested in sharing the wealth that is created with the people who actually create it, rather than the management who don't even blooming well live here. The owners. Anyway. Yeah, precisely right. All right, got to go. Thanks a lot, Malcolm. 0345 6060 973. They're writing it up as though it's an absolute outrage that, the Labour Party are anti-business. They're not anti-business. They're pro-worker, which is how it should be. I swear these right-wing papers that are writing this up as the Labour Party are anti-business. What is the end game? What would you actually be satisfied with? Slavery. That is what they would be most pleased with. If workers worked for nothing under threat of punishment, only then would they be happy. Everything else is kowtowing to the unions. God, it's just absolutely painful. And we've become so used to it over the last 14 years that it just seems you just nod your head and go, oh, yeah, that's right, they're anti-business. I mean, hands up who wants to work for £4 an hour. Keep them up while I count.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Okie dokie.
0345 6060 973. Michael in Toronto says, back in 2004, we had a lovely, rational, educated USA family as a neighbour. After Bush got re-elected as president, I asked the wife who she had voted for. She said Bush, although she hated his foreign, health and education policies, but she had to vote for Bush because she said she was a capitalist. A capitalist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's that trickle-down economics. It's never worked anywhere it's been tried. Carrie in Utoxeter says, we all know it's Meghan Markle controlling the weather. Is there nothing she won't do for attention? Yeah, thanks a lot, Meghan Markle. No! You see what you've done? There's so many of these. I'm never going to get through them all. Particularly as I have to now talk to a person in Spalding called Joan. Joan.
Nick.
Yes,
Hi,
Joan.
Nick. Right. I just said to your you have band members on there like Ian, but whoever I spoke to anyway, just that I was trying to get to sleep and I just can't stop laughing with you and all these funny things, especially about Trump. Because I've got 3 sisters out in America. We were all born in Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
We're all relatively normal. Now, they are all Trump manic supporters.
Oh.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh. And I'm not. No, thank God I'm over here in England and I'm away from it all. But, they've actually fallen out with people over him.
Yeah.
And Biden was nothing except an idiot, but now he's kind of gone into the background. Kamala Harris is even worse, and she's not an idiot. She's even worse in every direction.
Right. You're telling me what they think?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Not
what you think, right. Well, for the benefit of your mental health, Joan, I wouldn't even talk to them on the phone, because you might catch it. Just send them a text every now and again asking how they are. Have they come round yet?
But I just wondered, do you broadcast out, if I could get them to listen to you?
Yeah.
They might actually take notice of you.
Yes, exactly. Hey, Joan's relatives, wake up. It's later than you think. All right. Cheers, Joan. I wish you all the best. All right.
Thank you.
Ta-da.
Nick. Thanks. I can go to sleep now, but I won't. I'll still keep laughing.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
night.
Yeah, sorry
You're
about
so
that.
funny.
All right. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. This text says, chemtrails is not a conspiracy theory. All one has to do is observe the sky and the planes, sometimes flying in formation. Observe the sky. Or in other words... Yeah. It's in the sky. There it is. There's proof positive. Yeah. This text says, I disagree with so many of your views, but on the USA Trump, you cut straight to the point. It's horrifying that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene can spout such delusional lies without sanction. That could have been a text from Marjorie Taylor Greene that I read just now about the chemtrails. Observe the sky. It's in the trees. It would be laughable if people fall for such nonsense, except they get to vote. I'm not one for praying, as I'm atheist, but it's getting towards needs must. Yeah, I mean, why not? Just give it a go. Can't hurt. 0345 6060 973. Woking, Jeff.
Good morning, Nick.
Yes, sir.
You're on form this morning.
Am I?
I tell you what, just a quickie on the Tory leadership contest.
Oh, blimey, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's like a pack of cards. All they've done is put the losers back in the pack, taken them out, given it a shuffle, and we've got the same people in a slightly different order.
Yeah,
the ones who were rejected by the country.
It's a pack of jokers. Yeah.
Yes. Look, it's the same people, isn't it? I mean, the 6 or 7 they had were all losers, and yet we've got 2 of the biggest losers up before the party members.
I mean, you would have thought in any other era that either of those 2 people would be the death knell of the Conservative Party, because no one is going to follow those 2. But
absolutely,
we're not in any other era. We're in this one, and I think that they'll probably chime with the beliefs of a lot of people.
Well, I'm sure that. I mean, there's thousands of people that love old Liz Truss at number 10. That's amongst the Tory facility.
Yeah.
But I mean, just a quickie on the Labour Party, if I may, Nick. The Labour Party aren't anti-business. They're anti-unscrupulous and exploitative business.
Well, let's hope so, yes.
Yes. And I don't know if you remember, Nick, a few months ago, we were having a little chat, you and I, about the Persuaders.
Oh, yeah.
And I found an interesting documentary. It's called Fast Cars and Fashion. And it tells the story of the making of the Persuaders.
Oh, really?
And I think you find it fascinating. It's on the tube thingy. But, you mentioned about there was only 1 or 2 series.
Yeah.
And that was because Roger Moore was offered an offer he couldn't refuse by the producer of the Bond movies.
Yes.
So they had to terminate the Persuaders. They were looking for a replacement. They thought about a replacement, but they thought better of it. Now, another reason was the show didn't go down very well in the States. It was on a small network. And it was shown on sort of a Wednesday afternoon or something like that, so it didn't go down at all. Very big in Europe, but not very big in America.
It's extraordinary, really, that the 2 of the biggest stars in the world, perhaps Roger Moore wasn't a massive star then, but he subsequently became one of the biggest stars in the world by playing Bond. And Tony Curtis was already huge because, he'd had like a glittering career before they made that show. But I can't think of another TV show that had 2 stars of that magnitude in at the same time. Can you?
Well, the thing is, with Tony Curtis, he had been absolutely massive in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
But he tailed off a bit towards the end of the 60s and the early 70s. And he wasn't the first choice. They wanted a big American star, but I think the first choice was James Garner or Rock Hudson or something like that. You know? But anyway, they approached Tony Curtis, and I think they made him a massive offer for him to come over to England. But the thing was, they said to him, "Look, Tony, we want you. He wanted to be smuggled in at Heathrow. He didn't want any fuss, any fans. It was a bit of a surprise." And they said to him, "Look, Tony, you make sure you haven't got anything on you that you shouldn't have." "Oh, I'm all right." So anyway, he turned up at Heathrow, went through customs in a big bag of marijuana and a bag of pills and a gun.
Wow.
But for some reason, he got off with a £50 fine.
Blimey. Those were the days, eh?
The good old days.
Yeah.
Dick, before
Yes.
I go, just a quickie.
Yeah.
This week, I've had to renew my windscreen 3 times.
Why?
And then I realised I had a scratch on my glasses.
Say goodnight, Jeff.
Good night, Jeff.
0345 6060 973. Yeah, that was a very enjoyable show, and like James Garner would probably have been great in that role, because there's just like some people you just can't avoid liking, and James Garner was one of those people. I guess Tom Cruise also has that. I mean, that's why he's number one, right? Because whatever he plays, even if he plays a psychopathic murderer, you're still sort of rooting for him. And James Garner had that. It was just so likeable. But the thing with Tony Curtis was that he was funny. And I think that's what they really wanted for that role, because it was kind of a comedy adventure. There must be... there's almost certainly more people that haven't seen that programme than have. I mean, it was huge when I were a lad, and it's still probably available on a TV or internet screen near you. So I would look it up if I were you. The Persuaders, very good. Even if it's just enjoy the music. And I was talking about that when I talked to that chap about that earlier. And having watched it recently, it just sort of struck me like a bell that the music was brilliant, because it summed up the characters of the two people in the one tune, just by using different instruments to represent each. One was the Roger Moore's character, Lord Brett Sinclair. Blimey, I pulled that out of the air. I can't believe it. Let's see if I can remember. Danny Wilde. How come I can't remember what I did last week? And I can remember the names of the characters in a TV show I haven't seen for decades. The brain's a strange thing, ain't it? Well, mine is. That's for sure.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Come on, we're running late.
We are running late. Ditext's Cholmondeley is pronounced Chumley. It's an Anglo-Saxon thing. The defeated English could not get their German mouths around the Normans' strangulated vowels, so changed it. We still do. Paris should be Paris, but we just won't go along with all that foreign stuff. Oh, a word that's been in French people's mouths.
Dreadful.
Awful. And John in Brighton says, Nick, my memory might be going, but the one name I always remember, which is nothing like its pronunciation, is Featherstone-Haw, pronounced Fortescue. That wins the prize. That is the silliest thing I've ever heard. Oldbury, hey up, Ranjit.
Hi, right, mate.
Yes, Ranjit.
Okay.
Is it pronounced Oldbury?
Oldbury.
Oldbury, yeah.
No, Oldbury. No, in 1982, when I did my English exam, we had to read a script, right? And it said Edinburgh. I said Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it should have been, like, and the other one was Colonel. I said Colonel.
Colonel, yeah.
Right? The way it was spelled. Right? That was the way we was taught.
That's perfectly reasonable.
It is, but, I got a CSC grade 2 instead of a grade 1 because of that. But never mind,
But look at you now.
Oh, I could be Prime Minister, man. I'm Prime Minister material, I am.
Yeah, top of the world. Yeah.
The top of the world, you've got to be pretty thick and you're all right, like Donald Trump's done all right. I want to ask you something. Like now, we got the Labour government in, right? And the last time, remember, Gordon Brown invited Margaret Thatcher to Downing Street. Yeah? Who could, Keir Starmer invite in as a show of respect of the last 5 Prime Ministers? Who would be your recommendation?
Well, You can't invite Boris Johnson in because then you'd have to have the place fumigated for fleas.
Yeah.
Liz Truss would probably break lamps and things.
Absolutely.
She'd just blindly walk into them. Rishi Sunak, I don't know. I wouldn't trust the silverware around Rishi Sunak. There's just something about him which seems a bit, you'd want to count your fingers if you shook his hand. So it'd probably be David Cameron because you wouldn't have anything that he would want to nick.
No, but that is a bamboozling question, isn't it? Who could you show respect to of the last 14 years?
Yeah.
There wasn't any.
No.
And the other question is, right, what do you think would have happened if Tony Blair hadn't followed George Bush up the garden path and went into Iraq? What would have happened?
Well, probably the same thing. It's just that we'd have suffered less because of it.
I think then, because Tony Blair and Gordon Brown was a fantastic chancellor, and it's only the right-wing media that are saying he sold off all the gold. Yeah,
they just keep going on and on and on about it. And that era, which it was, I mean, the selling part, the way in which he went about it was, in retrospect, not the brightest thing that he ever did. But he seems a decent man. And that mistake of his, it pales into insignificance with just one day of, for instance, Liz Truss's disastrous premiership.
That happened within minutes and hours, really. Yeah. And, the top two people who were, recognised, right, for finance is Gordon Brown and the former Indian Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, right? He took India from being the 14th richest country to being the 4th or the 5th now, right? It was his legacy because he understood finance, right? He knew what to do, right? And he propelled it. He didn't even want to be Prime Minister of India. He kind of got, twisted into being it, but he was a finance person, and that's what we need now, right? Now, I spoke to you about this yesterday, that, the obviously billionaire that was spending money on these P&O ferries or whatever. You're right, he's going to make 10 times. For every pound he puts in, he's going to get £10
Of course.
back, right?
You're not doing us a favour.
Yeah, and now listening to Malcolm from Cornwall, he's kind of criticising Keir Starmer a little bit too much, in my opinion, for a Labour supporter. He's quite entitled to it.
Yeah, well, he's in charge at the moment, so that's who you direct your ire at.
Yeah, but, you should never throw one of your colleagues under the bus. Like I said to you last night, if this guy, whoever this guy who owns P&O ferries, if he was to say to me, well, Ranjit, you're the Prime Minister, right, but I'm going to screw all your people, your working class people, but you know what, I'm going to put some money in. I'd say to you, mate, listen, we'll go it ourselves, because at the end of the day, this inward investment me and you have been talking about for years, inward investment is what's going to take over this country again, and they have to be careful what they do.
Inward investment is why we don't own anything that is considered British anymore. We don't own our electricity, we don't own our gas, we don't own the oil in the sea, we don't own our water, we don't own our trains, we don't own anything that is British anymore. It's all because of inward investment. And this country has got a giant for sale sign out on it because of the disastrous policies of the last 14 years of the Conservative Party. And so other like sovereign wealth funds and hedge funds and all of the rest of it, the money people, they just see everything in this country is cheap. Now,
it's cheap.
For their misfortune is that we have already sold practically everything else in this country. There's almost nothing left. Look at a tall building in London, and with the exception of St Paul's Cathedral, which isn't that tall compared, they're all foreign-owned. There's not a British person owns any of them.
Well, the skyline's going to be owned by either Arabs, Russians, and that's it. And
Chinese,
I don't know, maybe
Malaysians,
Chinese and everything. And then you got Tweedledee and Tweedledum who are in the final now, right?
Gruesome and gruesomer,
Yeah, right. Now, they're just going to blame it all on the immigrants, right? Now, why don't they blame it all on the Russian oligarchs that own London and, and
I think that they should blame it on the boogie. It worked for Michael Jackson.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, all they want to do is be divisive, right? Instead of being inclusive.
Well, there's a lot of
right?
people who like divisive. It's practically their lifeblood being divisive. They love a bit of it.
Yeah, but if you say to somebody who's really divisive, say, what have you actually ever achieved in life, man? What have you actually ever done?
Yeah.
You know what?
Wake up in the morning and hated other people that are less fortunate than them. And that's all they need to know. Yeah.
And then they call Labour politics of envy. It isn't. You know, the people who haven't got two pennies, they say, I say to them, I ask them, you know, some of my good friends, I say, hang on, mate, listen, stop.
If I hear that phrase one more time, I'm going to scream. The politics of envy. Yes.
Envy.
That's people who haven't got anything, who are objecting to the notion that they might be able to better themselves, to improve their lot in life. Oh, that's a politics of envy, that is. It's cap-doffing. It's this subservient nature that we have, which is odd for a country that doesn't like working in the service industry. We don't like being waiters, but we like nothing better than being subservient to what we think is our betters.
You know, when people are collecting money for a sponsored swim and that, right, to replace the roof of your school, them are the people, right, who are saying that you've got politics of envy. And I say to them, listen, you want me to sponsor your child to do a walk, right, when the roof needs replacing, right? Why don't you tell your local MP that the government needs to replace that?
Yes.
Not me and you.
Why,
right?
Yeah. Why are there charities which are trying to minister to ex-service personnel? Why isn't the government taking care of that? What do we pay our blooming taxes for crying out loud? Here, Ranjit, I've got to go because I've got to wrap up the show. But thanks for that. He's very, very angry, with good reason. Grant says, Rounders is a decent game and I will die on this hill. Well, I'll say it, says Grant. Well, you said it. And you can't take it back now. It's not a decent game. It's as decent a game as cricket.
Boring.
Very, very dull. In Kent, there's a village called Trottiscliffe. It's pronounced Trossley, says that message. How is that possible? It can't be. Trottiscliffe is pronounced Trossley. Well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, why? That's just picking out random letters from a Scrabble bag and saying them in order. Trossley. So the Ttisliff is silent. Good grief. Frank in East Lothian says Athol Stainford in East Lothian is pronounced Elkin Ford. Well, Elkin Ford. Does sound like a swear word. I think I'm going to use that from now on. Oh, for Elkin Ford. So many. I'll just pick them at random, I guess. This says, working class is working for someone else, middle class is working for yourself. Well, I'm not sure that's true. Sheba says, if America could control hurricanes, then why haven't they sent one to Russia yet rather than destroy their own people? Unbelievable. I mean, if I had the ability to create and control hurricanes, first I would be showing my ability off to the world in order to obtain world dominance and keep those foul despots under control. Ridiculous people, says Sheba. Well, I think the Americans wouldn't, if they could control hurricanes, they wouldn't send one to Russia because the people who love Trump also seem to love Putin in equal amounts, weirdly. Kath in North Wales texts, my favourite image of Trump would be of him eclipsing the Queen when he walked in front of her to inspect the guards against protocol. And she was she was trotting behind him, trying to catch up. And she kept peeping out from behind him. It was beautiful. Yeah, that is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He's just bumbling along, is Donald Trump. He's got no idea what he's supposed to be doing. And he's wearing one of his big tough guy coats, which extend out from his shoulders by about 3 feet on either side, in order to make him look more impressive. I mean, just ridiculous shoulder pads that man wears. Because, if you've got your gut that big, then you have to take the eye off it by having very, very, very wide shoulders. And he's just inspecting the guards, and he's walking faster than she does. And and you do get a total eclipse of the Queen. And he realises that he can't see her anymore, and he probably can't turn around very easily. And so he just waits there for her to catch up. And there she is. Nice to see you. Where have you been? I've been out here inspecting these blokes all on my own. It's a total disgrace.